It was 3 days after DK Metcalf does his contract with Seattle, a very similar deal negotiated by the same agent, but with a different team in the division. 49ers and Deebo Samuel work out a 3-year extension worth $71.55 million with $58.1 million guaranteed. The deal isn't official yet. When it is official, I'll get the full breakdown, and we'll see exactly how it works and do a real apples-to-apples comparison to DK Metcalf. But Deebo got his deal. It looked like it wasn't going to happen. It felt different after the draft, Chris, and then it was just a matter of letting it all play out, and it did.
Yeah, it did. We've had this conversation a lot. I think this is, one of the positives of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. They don't panic. They didn't get their feelings hurt. It didn't become personal when some of this stuff went out. They kind of just let, things calm down a little bit. They started to reach out, got some conversations that sound like, and they slowly but surely chipped away at Deebo Samuel and whatever was bothering him and got to this. Again, this is the genius of Shanahan and his ability to communicate. I do think that for sure. And then I think also when you add in the desperation or the real need, we're talking about a team that is definitely Super Bowl caliber, young quarterback like we've talked about, by far the best weapon on their offense, and especially when you're talking about Shanahan and how creative it is and all the different things he does there. And now the support of Trey Lance, it just all made too much sense that it wouldn't get done. And I'm happy to see it. I'm happy for my friend Kyle Shanahan, happy for Deebo Samuel. I will say, I thought the number would be a little bit bigger. I'm surprised by that. But nonetheless, I'm glad one of the best teams in football got their best player back.
Why did you think the number would be higher?
I just thought it would because of the role he plays within the football team. The argument we've talked about is that, he takes a little bit more punishment than A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf. He's clearly a special player with the ball in his hand. 18 yards per catch, but 18 yards per catch, Mike, with an offense that threw the ball in the air as short as anybody in the game. So that means he's getting the 18 yards. He's catching it for 4 and getting 14 more yards. He's catching a screen behind the line of scrimmage and getting 20 more yards. That, to me, is special. He's the leading receiver on the team by far, and then the second leading rusher, and definitely the biggest weapon that way. So that's where I was a little surprised. I think not only the role on the football team, but then I thought there would be almost a little bit of a surcharge to go, wait, I take more hits and put my body out there more than the rest of these guys. You got to pay me for that. That's where I guess I was a little surprised, Mike.
That graphic, can we put the graphic back up? The graphic was accurate, but let's remember some of these deals have some BS baked in the back end. I chafe every time I see Tyreek Hill at $30 million per year. Technically, it's accurate, but the last year of that contract is worth a value that is so high it drives up the number to $30 million. That is a look at me clause in the contract to try to get him above the rest. I don't know that he's got the best deal of any of them. And the key is this. The other guys, especially when you look at Metcalf, Samuel, and Brown, they're back at the trough 4 years at the latest.
Right.
And if their team wants to keep them, they're going to be negotiating a new contract in only 3 years, and they're all going to still be in their 20s. So they're in a pretty good situation, and Hill's in a spot where he can have this window dressing to make it look like he's the highest paid receiver in the NFL when his deal may not be quite as great as advertised by the actual terms that have been cooked into it because that last year is never actually going to be on it. There was an interesting thing that came up on Saturday when Kyle Shanahan met with reporters, and you've touched on it, the role of Deebo Samuel. Kyle got a little pissy because the reporters asked him whether or not the role was
I saw that.
Playing a role in the contract talks.
Right.
And he said it has nothing to do with that. And he acted like it was all generated by people who don't know what they're talking about. The quote was, I know there's a lot of noise for 5 months and tweets, and a lot of people are repeating what someone else said and repeating. But when a guy all of a sudden doesn't want to be with a team anymore, and he doesn't say why, well, those of us out here who cover the sport are left to try to figure out why. And we had Deebo Samuel with us at the Super Bowl, and he explained how it came to be that all of a sudden he's this dual threat where he's getting the ball 8, 9, 10 times a game as a running back. And it wasn't like it's something he went and said, I want to do this. I want more wear and tear on my body. I'd like to shorten my career, please. I'd like to be in a bunch of car crashes per game that make it harder for me to recover for next week as I get older and older. Yes, I would very much like to play 2 roles instead of 1. That leads to the reasonable conclusion that either he doesn't want to do that or he wants to be paid for it.
That's right.
And so, Chris, we see he's not being paid for it. So now the question is he still going to be doing it, or are they just going to revert to we've got a stable of running backs that will do that, and we're only going to use Deebo in the most extreme cases where we feel like we need him because of either injury or he brings a level of intensity that we want to use to our advantage?
Yeah, I think that there's a few things you said there. I mean, one, I think first off, you're right. I mean, it's fair to ask Kyle Shanahan that question. I don't know why he got a little, disturbed by it or whatever, but I think it's perfectly normal. I think there's a lot of really smart football minds that are out there that were wondering the same thing and wondering if that was part of the equation here for the unhappiness. So, I don't know why he got a little bit mad at that altogether. And then I think to your point there, I don't think they wanted to run Deebo Samuel quite as much as they did at the end of the season. I think a little bit was forced because of running back injuries, and then he was having a little success, and there was a necessity, so they had to do it. So I do think that that'll be dialed back to a degree. But I still have a hard time thinking that big games, big situations, that he's still going to be the main focus of the offense, and some of those plays are going to be that right there. I am. So that's I'm surprised. He got paid. I know that, so he's happy. But yes, like you said, like I'm saying, I thought it would be a little bit more, and I'll be interested to see where this goes. I look at it in some ways and go, whoa, to see the 49ers, they got 3-year extension. Maybe they're going to beat him up, run him in the ground. They don't want to go longer than that. Maybe they're going, well, let's see where he's at after 2 or 3 years after we run the ball the way he did last year. That's crossed my mind for sure. The other thing that crossed my mind too, Mike, is the structure of the deal the way it looks is, there's a good chance too. It's a 2-year, $58 million contract. He could be done with those first 2 years basically and just go, wait, the 3rd year, it doesn't make sense. Send out the champagne again that says Deebo won't be a 49er, and let's go back to the table. I think all those things could be on the horizon. Sorry I said so much there. I just had to get it out.
No. Yeah. And that's one of the things we got to remember.
Right.
Just because a guy's under contract for 4 years doesn't mean we have 4 years of tranquility.
Yeah, right.
No way.
Right.
Kyle,
no way.
You think we're going to have 7 years of peace and quiet between Kyler Murray and the Cardinals after everything that happened this week? Even without everything that happened last week, we were 3-4 years away from Kyler Murray saying, hey, my contract kind of sucks in comparison to everyone else's right now. So that's the thing to remember. We have seen player empowerment, guys who are finding a way out of the teams that they don't want to be on any longer. More and more teams adopting Mike Tomlin's we want volunteers, not hostages mindset. And as the cap goes up and up, as contracts get better and better, you're going to have more guys with wandering eyes, and now they feel like they have a way to act on it that actually can be effective, unlike Terrell Owens in 2005 when he wanted either a new contract or out of Philadelphia, and their attitude was, you signed a contract, live with it. And we saw how it blew up on them. And ultimately, Terrell Owens was ahead of his time because more and more players of that mindset are now getting what they want. So Deebo Samuel in a couple of years may decide, I want out. DK Metcalf in a couple of years may decide, I want out. Kyler Murray may decide in a couple of years, if not sooner, I want out. Something to keep in mind. Again, we'll see what the full details are, but it's typically better for the player to have a shorter deal because it's those back-end year. Sometimes there's the phony baloney back-end year that like Tyreek Hill, and others it's just back-end years that are very favorable to the team that don't carry a high salary, and you got to convince the team to rip it up at a time when it's like, hey, we've paid you the bulk of the money up front. Now this is where we get to have it a little bit easier. We get the benefit of this bargain. We gave you security, and it may be below market, but too bad. We were above market when it all first started. Let me say one more thing about what he did as a running back, because I think it's important to remember. 8 games last year, first 8 weeks of the season, they may have had their bye, but it was through the first 8 weeks. He had 6 total carries. And then it was that Monday night game against the Rams.
Right.
The OBJ debut, and everything was going to be great. And the
must win for the 49ers. It was a bad spot.
Kicked the crap out of him. That was the game where it started.
Right.
That's where he got 5 carries in one game after having 6 all year long combined.
Yep.
Then they had a short week. Sunday game after the Monday night, he had 8. For the rest of the regular season, it was 6, 8, 6, 5, 7, and 8. Then came the playoffs. Against the Cowboys, wild card round, he had 10. Against the Packers, divisional round, he had 10. And then against the Rams, he had 7. So they really ramped it up because it was working. There was a quote at one point where Kyle Shanahan said, when I see basically the look in Deebo's eye, when I hear him say I want the ball, I trust it. Other guys I don't. With him I do. How do you get Kyle Shanahan to keep that club in his bag when he knows that he can rely on it?
I know. That's why I don't, I have a hard time thinking that that'll happen. I think we're going to be closer to the 6 and 10 carries, a game. Hopefully they can keep the running backs healthy, but I guess what I worry about is just like what you just explained. Yeah, they were 3 and 5. Things were desperate. Oh no, we got to kind of start winning from here on out. And that's when they started riding Deebo Samuel hard week in and week out. So that's what I worry about for him again this year, especially, NFC West. It's good. You're fighting for your life. All of a sudden you're sitting there and you're going, damn, we're a Super Bowl team, but we're only 4 and 3. And that's where you start to go, well, let me think about Deebo again. And that's where, I'll be interested to see. But I would think Shanahan's going to have a hard time, not putting him in there in those situations as well, Mike. I agree with you there.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.